The power of silence. They fear silence isn't weakness. It's not absence. It's not emptiness. Silence is control. Silence is power. In a world that never shuts up, the one who can sit still, without noise, without validation, without a need to respond, holds the upper hand. Most people speak just to fill space. They talk to be liked, to be noticed, to escape discomfort. But the man who's comfortable in silence, he doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't chase approval. He listens. He observes. And when he finally speaks, people listen. They fear that, because silence exposes everything. In silence, there are no distractions, no excuses, no masks, just raw truth. And the truth unsettles people who rely on noise to hide. They don't want to sit in a room with their thoughts. They don't want to face the mirror when the world goes quiet. But if you can sit in that silence, you own something rare, something dangerous. The silent man is unreadable, unpredictable. No one knows what you're thinking. No one knows what's coming next. That mystery, that uncertainty, is power. It keeps others on edge. It forces respect. Not through volume, but through presence. Look around. The loudest people in the room are usually the weakest. They're broadcasting insecurity, shouting to compensate for what they lack. But the silent man, he speaks when it matters, and when he does, his words cut deep. Silence also teaches patience. It teaches you to wait, to watch, to strike with precision, not desperation. In a world built on reactions, staying silent is a form of rebellion. It's not apathy, it's discipline. They want you loud, emotional, predictable, because then you're easy to manipulate. But if you hold the line, if you stay still when they expect noise, you're not just different, you're dangerous. This is why they push noise into every second of your day. Notifications, entertainment, small talk, mindless scrolling. It keeps you dull, distracted, weak. But silence sharpens you. It brings clarity. It reconnects you to your instincts. In silence, you realize how much of your power you've been giving away just by always speaking, always reacting, always explaining. Stop explaining. Stop justifying. Stop responding to everything. Let your silence speak for you. Let your actions echo louder than any words ever could. Because once you master silence, you master presence. And presence is what makes a man unforgettable. You don't need to raise your voice to command a room. You need to raise your standards, your boundaries, your awareness. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them sit in the tension. Let your stillness make them nervous. Because once you stop fearing silence, once you start using it, you begin to see how silence turns into strategy. Not the kind of strategy that's loud, obvious, or theatrical, but sharp, deliberate, and patient. While others rush to speak and rush to act, you wait, you observe, you study the pattern. And when the time is right, you move with force, not noise. This is why true power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't show off. It walks into a room and changes the temperature without saying a word. Think about the most dangerous men in history, not the loud ones, not the boastful, but the ones who spoke with clarity, not clutter. The ones who used their silence like a weapon, clean, efficient, precise. You don't win battles by talking. You win by listening longer, watching deeper. The enemy reveals himself when he speaks too much. You, on the other hand, reveal nothing. You leave them guessing. You let the silence expose their intentions while you protect your own. This is why people fear silence. They can't control it. They can't manipulate what they can't read. And they can shake a man who doesn't to react the way they want him to. Your silence doesn't mean submission. It means you're choosing your moment. It means your emotions are under control. It means your strength comes from within, not from how loud you can get. In relationships, silence shows self-respect. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't play emotional tug-of-war. You step back, you stay grounded, you let distance speak what words cannot. In conflict, silence shows composure. Anyone can lash out, anyone can argue, but it takes real discipline to stand tall, lock eyes, and say nothing. To let the other person unravel under the weight of their own words. In growth, silence becomes space to think, to reflect, to rebuild. Because real transformation doesn't happen in the noise. It happens when the world goes quiet and you're left with your deepest truth. And here's the thing, they'll try to poke at your silence. They'll test it. They'll provoke you. They'll accuse you of being cold, arrogant, distant. But deep down, they know what your silence really is. It's power. It's presence. It's the calm before the storm. So let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them project. You sit back. You sharpen your mind. You protect your energy. Because the man who understands the power of silence doesn't chase anything, he attracts everything. And while others burn out trying to be heard, he's building in the quiet, waiting in the shadows, growing stronger with every moment of stillness. Because silence isn't passive, it's preparation. It's where you train your mind, where you make decisions without distraction. It's where you separate what's real from what's noise. In that silence, you start to see the games people play. You see who's posturing, who's insecure, who's bluffing, and while they're performing for attention, you're positioning for dominance, not to be flashy but to be effective. A man rooted in silence is grounded in himself. He doesn't flinch under pressure. He doesn't need to defend his value. He knows who he is. And when you know who you are, you don't chase conversations that don't build you. You don't argue to win, you walk away to preserve your energy. Let that sink in. Not every battle is worth your voice. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every challenge needs a reaction. Silence becomes a filter. It keeps you from wasting your power. It forces people to meet you on your level or leave you alone. And if they can't handle the quiet between words, they were never built for the strength behind them. You become a storm in still water, still on the surface, but powerful underneath. That's why they fear you. They can't decode you. They can't rush you. They can't shake you, because you've built something inside that doesn't need to be seen to be real. It's unspoken, unbreakable, undeniable. You carry it in your eyes, in your posture, in your silence, and when you finally speak, when you finally move, it's not just words anymore. It's a signal that the waiting is over, that the quiet has ended, that the one who watched, listened, prepared, is ready. And when that moment comes, the shift is undeniable. Because everything you say cuts deeper. Everything you do carries weight. Not because you tried to impress anyone, but because you chose restraint when others chose reaction. The silent man doesn't strike often. But when he does, it's final, it's clean, it's precise. It doesn't need explanation, and it doesn't seek applause. See, silence builds anticipation. It creates pressure. People start to wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, and that unknown becomes a weapon. They fill in the gaps with their own insecurities. They question themselves. They overreact. And while they unravel, you stay composed, patient, dangerous. This is the hidden power of silence. It turns the world into noise while you stay grounded in clarity. It keeps you light, focused, and free from emotional chaos. And the ones who truly understand this, they don't live to be loud, they live to be effective. Because they know that true mastery doesn't make a scene, it makes a statement without ever needing to raise its voice. So ask yourself, can you be still while the world moves frantically? Can you hold your power when everyone else is desperate to be heard? Can you let your silence do what noise never could? Because in a world addicted to attention, your ability to stay quiet, to stay deliberate, to stay unreadable, that's your edge, that's your discipline. That's the version of you they never saw coming. And when that version finally steps forward, after all the waiting, all the watching, all the building in the dark, the silence breaks. But only because you decided it was time. And when you decide it's time, everything changes. Because now your voice has weight. Not just sound, it carries intention. It carries experience. It carries the quiet fire been building in every silent moment they overlooked. They thought your silence meant nothing. They mistook it for weakness, for disinterest, for uncertainty. But what they didn't realize is that silence is the mark of a man who doesn't need noise to move mountains. You've been strategizing while they've been shouting. You've been sharpening your edge while they've been dulling theirs with distraction. And now when you do speak, when you do act, it's not random. It's not emotional. It's surgical. That's why your silence scares them. It's not just the absence of words, it's the presence of strength. A strength that doesn't panic. A strength that doesn't beg. A strength that doesn't rise to every bait or fold under every challenge. And here's the truth they'll never say out loud. They envy your composure. They envy your control. They envy that no matter what chaos surrounds you, you don't need to broadcast your power. You embody it. That's what makes you rare, because when you live with intention, when every word, every move, every breath comes from a place of clarity and calm, you're no longer playing by their rules. You've created your own rhythm, your own standard, your own code. And from that place, you don't chase things. You attract, you magnetize. You pull opportunities, people, and respect without forcing anything. That's what silence builds. Not just discipline, but presence. And presence is felt long before a word is spoken. So while the world keeps rushing, keep building, keep observing, keep holding the line. Because the moment you decide to break that silence, not to fit in, not to react, but to lead, the room shifts. The game changes, and suddenly, they remember why the quiet ones are always the most dangerous. Because by the time they realize it, you're already 3 moves ahead. You weren't sleeping, you were studying. You weren't hiding, you were preparing. And when the dust settles, it's not the loud desk voice that commands the outcome. It's the one who saw everything, said nothing, and moved with ruthless precision. Silence gave you vision. It gave you space to hear what others miss, to feel what most numb themselves to build what most are too distracted to even imagine. That's the secret. Silence is where transformation happens. While they crave attention, you're crafting alignment. While they rush into noise, you're rooted in purpose. And that purpose is unshakable because it wasn't handed to you in a moment of hype. It was forged quietly, slowly, deeply, and now you walk different, not because you're trying to impress, but because you carry a weight inside that doesn't need to be explained. People feel it, in your eyes, in your posture, in your restraint. And it makes them uncomfortable because they can't figure you out. They don't know where they stand. They don't know what you'll do. And that uncertainty, that quiet intensity, it shakes them because you're not emotional, you're focused. You're not reactive, you're calculating. You're not loud, you're lethal. That's what silence taught you. How to be still without being soft. How to wait without weakening. How to speak less but say more. And most importantly, how to lead without begging for followers. Because when a man masters silence, he doesn't just walk into a room, he commands it. He doesn't just participate in life, he shapes it. And he doesn't just survive the noise, he outlasts it. So keep your silence, sharpen it, respect it, use it. Because the world will try to pull you back into noise, into cheap validation, fast emotions, and constant reaction. But you've outgrown that. You've built something deeper. And what's built in silence cannot be shaken by sound. And that's what they can't understand, because most people live for reaction. They're wired to respond, addicted to attention, desperate for approval. But you detached from that cycle. Silence made you sovereign. You're not here to entertain. You're not here to prove. You're here to own yourself fully, unapologetically, without compromise. And when you walk like that, when your confidence is grounded in stillness, when your energy is calm but unmistakably present, you change the way people engage with you. They become careful. They measure their words. They watch their tone, not because you said anything, but because your absence of reaction demands respect. That's the paradox. You say less, but you are heard more. You do less, but your presence shakes more. You reveal less, but you know more. You've moved beyond noise, beyond ego, beyond the surface. Silence is now your advantage, your inner fortress. And from that place, you're no longer influenced by the temporary. You've trained your mind to be unmoved by chaos. You've learned to sit in discomfort without trying to escape it. That's where the edge is, because once you can face the storm within, nothing outside can break you. They fear that. They fear the man who doesn't need to be seen, doesn't need to be heard, doesn't need to be liked, but still dominates just by existing in full control of himself. That kind of man is rare, that kind of man is dangerous, and that kind of man is remembered. So hold your silence, guard it like a weapon. Let it sharpen you. Let it reveal the truth about others. Let it build a presence so undeniable that even when you leave the room, the atmosphere you created lingers behind. Because when a man masters silence, he doesn't fade into the background. He becomes the standard, and the world, it either adapts to him, or it gets left behind, because the man who lives by silence doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't need validation to move forward. He doesn't pause to explain himself to those who haven't earned the right to understand him. He simply acts with clarity, with certainty, and with unshakable purpose. And that makes people nervous. They're used to noise-driven decisions. They're used to emotional outbursts, endless talking, constant feedback loops. But when you remove all that, when you cut through the clutter with silence and intentional action, you reveal how chaotic their world really is. You shine a light on how undisciplined most minds have become. You remind them of what they gave up in the name of comfort, their edge, their presence, their masculine depth. But you didn't give that up, you reclaimed it. You built something in silence that can't be faked with bravado or borrowed from trends. And now, your silence speaks before you ever do. It walks into the room first. It sets the tone. It defines the dynamic. This is what it means to be undeniable. Not loud, not boastful, but present, rooted, real. And when you're real, when you faced yourself in the quiet, nothing superficial can tempt you. No insult can rattle you. No storm can move you. Because you've already been through the fire in silence. You've already broken, rebuilt, and risen without making a scene. And now, your silence isn't just a habit. It's a language, it's a boundary, it's a signal. Only those who operate on that frequency will hear it. Everyone else, they'll either try to provoke it, or disappear in its presence. That's the new level you've stepped into. Where silence isn't emptiness, it's a statement. Where you don't shout for control, you embody it. Where you don't demand respect, you command it, simply by showing up aligned, focused, and untouchable. And from this place, you don't just survive noise, you render it irrelevant. Because once you render the noise irrelevant, you enter a different arena entirely. An arena where energy speaks louder than words, where presence overrides performance, where clarity replaces chaos. And suddenly you're not playing the same game as everyone else. You're not fighting for scraps of attention. You're not wasting breath on petty arguments. You're operating in a space few ever reach, complete inner command. That's what makes you unpredictable. That's what makes you untouchable. Because when you no longer need to react, you no longer need to defend. You're no longer on edge. You're in control, always. They throw noise at you, and you don't flinch. They bait you, and you don't bite. They gossip, challenge, question, doubt, and you remain still. Still doesn't mean passive. Still means poised. It means you've trained your mind to respond with precision, not panic. And that kind of control, it shakes people at their core. Because most can't sit still for 5 minutes without distraction. But you've turned silence into armor. It protects your focus. It amplifies your intuition. It keeps your energy clean. And in a world polluted by constant noise, that's the real flex. You become the man who listens more than he speaks, moves less, but means more, waits longer, but strikes harder. They can't predict you. They can't read you. They can't shake you. Because silence has made you solid. Solid in your mission. Solid in your identity. Solid in your values. And when a man stands solid, he doesn't just walk through life. He carves a path through it. Let them fear it. Let them misunderstand it. That's not your concern. Your concern is staying aligned, staying grounded, staying in motion without needing to explain yourself to anyone. Because the more silent you become, the louder your presence speaks. And eventually, the world stops listening to the noise and starts listening to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Not through volume, not through showmanship, but through unwavering discipline, sharp awareness, and the weight of your silence. You see, most men chase influence. They chase clout, applause, attention. But real influence, it's quiet, it's consistent. It's felt, not announced. You influence through who you are when no one's watching, through how you carry yourself when nothing is said, through the tension you create just by being completely unmoved. That's what separates leaders from followers. Not charisma, not charm, but depth. And depth is born in silence. The shallow need the crowd. The deep carry the room without ever opening their mouths. So, while others chase validation, you chase mastery. You refine your thoughts before they become words. You move with intent, not impulse. You wait not out of fear, but out of strategy. And when you speak, it's not to impress, it's to impact. That's why every word you say matters. Because it's not just speech, it's precision, it's presence, sharpened by restraint. And in that restraint, you've created something deadly, a man who can respond, but chooses not to. A man who can dominate, but doesn't need to show it. A man who can be loud, but knows his silence is louder. So let the world keep shouting. Let them keep spinning in chaos. Let them keep mistaking noise for strength. You're done with that game. You've entered a different realm, where presence beats persuasion, where calm beats chaos, where stillness is your sharpest weapon. And the deeper you go into that stillness, the clearer everything becomes. The distractions fade, the ego dissolves. The mission sharpens, and now, when you walk into a room, you don't have to say a thing, because your silence has already told them everything they need to know. And what it told them is this: you are not to be underestimated. You are not here to perform. You are not like them, and that unsettles them more than anything. Because you've become the type of man who speaks without speaking. Your eyes say it. Your posture confirms it. Your silence proves it. And that kind of presence, that quiet, unshakable power, can't be copied, can't be faked, can't be rushed. It's earned, in the hard moments, in the lonely hours, in the discipline of saying nothing when your ego begged to be loud. You've mastered the pause between the impulse and the response. You've turned reaction into calculation, and that changes everything. You're no longer pulled into battles that don't matter. You don't bleed energy on things beneath your mission. You've elevated beyond emotional turbulence and into mental clarity. Now, silence becomes your filter. It keeps out the weak. It exposes the desperate. It repels the fake. Only the real ones can handle your energy now, because they recognize it, they feel it. Silence reveals who's for you, and who just wants access to your peace, who respects your boundaries, and who's threatened by them. And once you see that, you don't go back to noise. You can't, because silence is no longer just a habit. It's your standard. It's how you protect your power, how you preserve your mind, how you stay ahead while everyone else gets caught in the spin cycle of reaction, drama, and distraction. Let them keep talking. Let them keep guessing. You've moved beyond their reach, and the more you embrace that silence, the more magnetic you become. The more valuable your words become. The more lethal your actions become, because the one who speaks less, he builds more, sees more, owns more. And now that you've stepped into this, you realize there's no need to raise your voice when you've raised your standard. And that standard, it becomes the silent contract you make with yourself, that from this point forward, nothing you do is random. No word wasted, no movement uncontrolled, no emotion unchecked. You carry yourself like a man who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. Your peace, your mission, your energy, your future. You don't explain what doesn't need explaining. You don't react to what doesn't deserve reaction. You don't chase what doesn't align with your direction. Because when you live by intention, your silence is not absence, it's authority. And in a world starving for attention, authority feels like a threat. People won't know how to deal with it. They'll try to test you, to provoke you, to pull you back into the noise where they feel comfortable. But you won't budge, because once you've seen how silence changes your clarity, how it cleanses your life from shallow connections, how it exposes the truth and strengthens your grip on reality, you can't go back. You won't go back. You move with something most people can't understand: inner gravity. The way you walk, the way you sit in silence and don't flinch, the way you look someone in the eye and say nothing, yet somehow say everything. That's what they fear, not because you're violent, not because you're arrogant, but because they can't predict you, can't sway you, can't shake your center. Because it's rooted now. You anchored yourself in something deeper than reaction. Intention, control, self-mastery. And from this place, every move you make will carry weight. Not because it's loud, but because it's undeniably you. And that's when the world starts to adjust to you. Not the other way around. You stop bending. You stop chasing. You stop compromising your edge just to be understood by people who never took the time to understand themselves. Because you've built something they can't touch, an internal code. A way of living so precise, so grounded, so deliberate, that even your silence has structure. Now, every room you enter, you set the tone, not with bravado, not with force, but with stillness that commands attention, without ever asking for it. This is where most men fall short. They think dominance about noise, about being the loudest, about constantly asserting. But you know the truth. Real dominance is quiet, measured, controlled, because true power never panics, it never begs, it never performs, it simply is. And the man who carries that, he's felt before he's seen, respected before he speaks, followed without ever needing to lead by demand. That's the man you're becoming. A man who doesn't need the world to understand him, because he understands himself. He doesn't fight every battle, because he knows not every battle is worthy of his presence. He doesn't respond to every challenge, because silence is sometimes the deadliest response. And he doesn't dilute his message just to be liked, because his purpose is bigger than popularity. This is the quiet path. Not many walk it. Fewer still finish it. But if you keep going, if you keep choosing silence over noise, discipline over drama, clarity over chaos, then eventually, your name won't need to be spoken. Your presence will be felt long before you arrive. Because silence, when mastered, echoes further than any shout ever could.